Welcome to Lesson 3 of our course, Let's Talk SQL. On the agenda today, we're going to cover the database keys concept, select statement, left join versus inner join, how to create a view, and how to present our data on a report. So what is relations and keys? So in our database, we usually have tables. So why do we create tables? The reason why we create tables is because we don't want to re-enter the data for each supplier and each customer in our database. We want to enter the values for each supplier and each customer only one time and then reference this data in all of our other tables. So for example, our supplier, J. Smith, we want to enter his telephone number, his address, his warehouse address, his name only one time. So what we do is we create a supplier table, we create a code, whether this code can be his telephone number, it can be a short form of his name, and we call it J. Smith in this case. This code that we decided to use it in our table and then reuse it in other tables is what we call in the database the primary key. So the primary key of the supplier table is the supplier code. Now we want to buy from J. Smith. So we enter our purchase order information and then the date of the PO. It can be which warehouse of ours J. Smith is going to send his products to, and then we reference the code of J. Smith. That means that this table is, or this purchase order is being supplied by J. Smith. And our purchase order number, which is our key in this table, is the purchase order number. And we have referenced the supplier J. Smith. So J. Smith in this table is a foreign key. So when we start linking two tables together, we try to link the foreign key of a table to the primary key of another table. So if I want to search all the purchase orders that I have requested from J. Smith, I would link the code J. Smith to all the records in the purchase order table for the supplier code. Then we have what are the details of this purchase order. The same way, we reference our purchase order main information to all the details of my purchase order using the purchase order number. So the purchase order number in my purchase order detail is a foreign key. Okay, now that we learned a bit about database keys concept, let's apply this to our database. So know that our primary key of the table suppliers is the supplier ID. So let's select everything from our suppliers table. So here's my supplier ID. I want to see all the purchase orders for the supplier, for every supplier I have. So I'm going to pull my table, and now I'm going to link both tables. I'm going to give it a short name. So I'm trying to search for my supplier from the main table in the purchase order table. Now let's get few columns instead of getting all the columns from both tables. Let's get the name. Let's get the purchase order number. Let's get the purchase order date. Now let's run this statement. And I bought from supplier number 2, purchase order number 1 on the 1st of January 2013. So when we decided to link these tables, we used the inner join. Now let me explain for you what is the difference between an inner join and a left join. First, let's look at how many rows were returned from our select statement. If you look at the bottom right corner of the screen, you're going to find that we have returned 2074 rows where my mouse is hovering. Let me run it again. 2074. So let me change this word inner join by left join. And now let me run the same statement. You will realize that I returned 2080 rows. So what is the difference? The difference is I did not buy purchase orders from some suppliers. So the left join usually sometimes returns more records if the driving table, which is my suppliers, does not exist in the purchase order. So the left join returns all the records from my driving table, even if it did not exist in my secondary table. If you want to know who are the suppliers I did not buy from, you can add a where clause where p dot supplier ID is null. So the is null represents that there is no value in the database. Let me run this again. Now it returned less records. It returned for me all the suppliers that I have never bought from. So when to decide to use left join versus using the inner join? You would use the left join if you want to return all the records regardless whether you use them or not, while the inner join you only want to return the records that you have used them. I want to return all the records for my customers that I sold to. Or if I want to use the left join, I want to return all the records for the customers that whether I sold to or I didn't, so I can do more effort on the customers I did not sell to. Now let's link our purchase order line to our statement. We want to link our purchase order line to the main purchase order information. So we use the inner join and we link the lines on the primary key from the purchase order table. We added to our select statement as well what is the received quantity and what is the price of the total price of the received quantity. I can run this statement now and then it can give me this information. I bought from my supplier number 2 on the 1st of January 2013 this item, this quantity for this price. Now let me introduce you to a new concept in the database, which is the views. So you ask me a question, do I have to write this whole statement every time I want to use it? I will say no. The database have gave us an option to save the select statement for future use. And all what you need to do is to type down create view my purchases as. So once you add this view, this statement, you can run it and it stores your view. Now, if I write a statement as select asset from my purchases and then run this statement, it would run exactly and return the same results of my select statement. The view can be treated by you exactly of how you treat the table. You can use it in a select statement. You can join it to any other view or table. So over here, I can say inner join my suppliers on, let me give this a short name, and then run the statement. So now you can see that I was able to get the columns of my supplier. So using a view is a good way to store your select statements and complex select statements so you wouldn't have to rewrite them again. Now let's take this view and try to present it in a report. We're going to open our Excel, a blank sheet. We're going to go to our Data tab, Get Data, from Database, and from SQL Server Database. I'm going to type my server name, which is a local host over here since we're having the database on our local computer. I'm going to copy my database name and I'm going to hit the advanced option. I'm going to go back to my SSMS and copy my statement and paste it over here. I'm going to hit OK. Then I'm going to use my credentials, hit connect, hit OK. That's a preview of my data. If you hit this drop down, you can either load to and then select one of these options, a table, pivot table, or chart. I will select the table. Now we were able to pull our data to Excel. Having the data over here, you can do all sorts of transactions in Excel. You can filter on your supplier. You can sum up the values. You can do all sorts of regular Excel functions. And every time you want to refresh your data, you go to your Data tab and hit Refresh. Now that we have covered some basics of a select statement and how to export our table to a report, please don't forget to subscribe to get notified about future courses covering more advanced SQL topics. Thanks for watching.